Let's see if it's connected.
You got two people watching.
And I guess YouTube is live. And I guess we're live right now on LinkedIn as well. I got another computer over here, so it looks pretty professional.
Multi-screening.
I think so, yeah. But it's pretty. It's a ghetto setup, which I like, which I dig. So I guess we got about 19 people tuned in right now. I guess you want to get it, and so everyone can see the smiling face that I'm looking at right now. There we go.
Hey, everybody.
All right.
People actually showed up to watch. That's amazing.
I guess there's nothing going on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. We got Daryl. First off, everyone, I want to, before we start giving shout outs and all this fun stuff we normally do, I want to say, first off, everyone, thank you for tuning in this morning. This is Around the Rotary podcast with me, your host, JP Warren. And before we get kicked off, I got to say that Around the Rotary podcast is brought to you by Capital Petroleum Consultants. CPC specializes in project engineering and well site supervisions in all disciplines of the oil and gas industry. Contact us through www.capitalpetroleumconsultants.com to see what CPC can do for you today. And you can also find Around the Rotary on any streaming platform, Spotify, Apple, and we're actually on Instagram as well, round_the_Rotary_JP Warren. So check that out. There's a lot of good content that I don't usually post on LinkedIn. So anyway, so I guess everyone joining us, I'm sure we know why y'all are here. This is Keith Stelter, the West Texas Business Development Manager of Arc Energy, and also kind of a LinkedIn guru. I hope everyone can hear me okay, and we have audio and visual. I usually don't do live podcasts, but I figured this was the perfect person to, I guess, this is the third live podcast I've done. I've done with Mark Ryan and Jason Churchill. So Keith, thanks for joining us today. Let's give a couple shout outs for people tuning in, kind of find out where they're tuning in from, and say hello to a couple folks. We got Daryl saying, let's go, Keith. We got to go Matt Hill saying, looking good, homie. I don't know if he's talking to you or me, so I think it's probably you. All right. And we got Messi saying, JP's a snappy dresser. Woo-hoo. That's the excitement we need. That's what we're looking for. All right. Let's see what we got going on. Hey, we got some warm welcomes from old Leroy saying, Keith Stelter, all the best, Keith. We got old Brent. Brent, are you seeing a lot of people that you've connected with on LinkedIn that you haven't met saying hello to you?
For the most part, I think I've recognized most of the comments in there.
All right.
Different ones.
Different ones. Brent says hello. Annette says hi. User.
That's a good one. I love when that comes up.
Well, hey, Lane
on my screen.
Lane says looking good, Keith. So I dig that. We got this. So this is another LinkedIn thing. This Mike Davidson. I've never met this cat, but him and I have connected on LinkedIn for probably about a year now, and he's always chiming in. I'm always chiming in on his stuff. So I'm glad to see you, Mike. Thanks for joining in today. We got old Gabe Jackson saying, I like the shout outs. Gabe, I'm glad you're here, buddy. Thanks for joining us today. And we have old Lane saying hello, Keith. Let's do a couple more. This guy named Donnie Davis. Great shirt, Keith. What shirt you wearing, Keith? What are you rocking?
So, little inside joke. Apparently, my wife bought this like for my birthday, and I ended up taking too many pictures of myself, or in my posts wearing this nice blue polo. So one day I'm finally meeting Roy Strawn, and we're sitting there, and Roy is like giggling to himself, and he sends a picture to Donnie Davis, and I'm wearing this shirt. I didn't pick it. That was the rotation in the wash. And sure enough, he sends it to Donnie, and Donnie's like, he's always wearing that damn shirt. So then I actually started feeling self-conscious, like, oh, what am I wearing? And sure enough, I'd wore this blue shirt like more times than I could count.
So do you wear the black shirt underneath there so you can actually extend 2 to 3 days more of the shirt wear, or is that kind of something that came up randomly and coincidentally?
Comfort, I wear the nice, I don't know, undershirt just for comfort under a polo. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should go shirtless underneath, and I don't know. Then maybe Donnie might not notice what I'm wearing all the time.
Yeah, Donnie, why don't you comment on the content, not the clothes, buddy? Anyway, hey, you might want to say hello to this gentleman over here, Jason. Hola from Lafayette, Louisiana. Let's do this. Go Keith Stelter.
he's the reason. He saw a lot of the stuff what I'm doing, and I'm sure we're going to get into the story, so I'm not going to spoil the ending here.
Oh, we're going to get into it. We got about two or three more minutes of saying hello to everyone right there. We got Jeremy calling in from Houston, Kevin Burns saying, "Hey guys," pull him up. Brent Weaver, "Hey guys." A lot of good support over here. I'm digging seeing this. We got Lane's calling from Houston. We got Monte from Galena, Illinois. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, but I butcher even my daughter's name half the time, so I'm good. All right. Jason saying LinkedIn Guru. Nice title. We got Juan calling in from Fort Worth, Texas. All right. Greetings from Lafayette. Glad to be here. Great content, Keith. Thanks, Donnie, for the stuff that we're talking about, not the clothes people are.
David Gibson. Yes.
Where's he at? How are you seeing this?
I saw one come in.
I dig it. David Gibson. Hello, great show, guys. David Gibson, I'm sure everyone knows him on here. He's the host of the V-Door Locksmith. It's usually every Friday around 10 a.m. Is that
Yes,
about?
sir. Yes, sir.
And Keith, do you want to kind of get into kind of your experience with David and kind of how he helped you and supported you during, I guess, you looking out? Just touch on it right now. We'll get into it later, but give him a little shout out because I know he's been champion.
David's been amazing to me. Lots of people have reached out during my time, trying to attract attention, try and get a job. That was the main thing. It wasn't about likes or, comments. It was about trying to get enough. You send out your resume, but how do you get them to actually look at it? So in the end, David saw what I was doing, saw that I kept up at it, invited me on his show just to help even raise the profile even more. I have, I can't say enough how much it meant to me because it made me feel like what I was doing was, meant something. That was actually being seen by people. And, being on a show, once again, it was live, really got me out of my comfort zone. I was, never done anything like that, but the only answer I could say was yes. And
Dude,
so much. And he's done so much for me. And he won't take any credit for it because he's just such a great guy.
He always passes the credit. I'm sick of that. So, David, if you don't mind, to take a little bit of credit for the impact that you're doing in people's lives, buddy. I appreciate that. Thanks. Well, Mark says, hello, guys. What's going on, Mark? And we got what do we got? We got old Jeremy from Galena Eagleford tuning in. Mark sees some familiar faces. I dig that. Mike wants the minute back with Keith on David's show, and I kind of support that. I dig that. That was always fun seeing you on there and kind of having you pass your message on. All right, so let's hey man, let's get this kicked off. We can say hi to everyone as long as we want, but this is about you today, Keith, and how you're gonna tell your story and potentially help people out there, which again, thanks for tuning in. Why don't you kind of give us the reason we wanted to, let me give a little background on this. Keith and I have never met in person. True or false?
True. 100%.
Right. We've talked maybe a couple times on the phone, but yet
only up until recently. Like I've never heard your voice up until I would say 2 weeks ago.
But I thought you were a huge fan of Around the Rotary podcast, so you must
on a phone where you were responding to me. I've watched the show many, many times. Actually, I was going to bring that up on a couple of the stories, but
okay. Well, anyway, that was a good check. So anyway, so the point is, I was noticing your stuff probably about 10 months ago on LinkedIn, and again, you and I have never met, but I've just seen just an influx of, I guess, messages and posts and all that stuff, and what it did. And it's kind of silly what it does. It kind of makes me feel like I know you in person when we never even met. And you're in a Midland, Odessa area, correct?
Odessa, Texas. Yeah.
Odessa, Texas. I'm in Houston. But the thing is, though, I feel like I know you just because the genuine posts that you've done. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. Today, I want to discuss kind of your approach and what you've done on LinkedIn and kind of how you've set yourself apart, how you branded yourself. I mean, we're going to get into all this, get all this later. Are there a lot of comments going on right now?
No.
So the
excited and happy to be here. To me, I think the biggest part, what I've tried to convey, is that I have no marketing background, wasn't in sales, none of this stuff, and then out of just necessity, because I needed a job and I just couldn't wait around for the phone to ring. So
yeah, so let's get this kicked off then. Why don't you give me a little background about yourself and kind of where you found yourself probably about May 2020, and I guess your mindset where you were before you actually started approaching LinkedIn.
Well, I grew up in Canada on a farm, and I brought a lot of this up in my posts, and that's why a lot of people think they'll come up to me. Like recently, I was at a little bit of a crawfish boil, this party. in Midland. And a couple of guys, a friend of yours, Ryan Brogley, he comes up to me and he's like, man, I feel like I know you. I've seen your stuff online so much. And it's happened, a few times to me lately, just because I've done that. That wasn't really the original intention, but it's been a very positive byproduct. But, I grew up in Canada on a farm.
What kind of farm was this? Was it like an actual crop farm? Was it like cattle? Like,
it was both. So growing up, my dad and mom, we raised cattle, lots of grain. Then my parents got divorced. I ended up living with my dad for the most part. How I got exposed to the oil field, it was my dad hauled rigs in the wintertime, or he actually was an ice road trucker, if you can believe that, up there, hauling fuel to the diamond mines.
Like the show? Ice Road Truckers?
Like the show, yeah. He actually, the first video I ever did was telling a story of like a guy who, unfortunately passed because he got attacked by a polar bear up there. But it would have been my dad's friend. They were tracking, the polar bear was actually tracking him as he was putting straps up on his load. And the polar bear was figuring out, like in the storm, that every time a new set of pallets came, he would throw the strap on and get farther and farther away from the cab. But good thing for my dad's friend, he ran out of pallets halfway through the load. So then they jump in the loader and they go. Well, poor security guard comes around looking, here's this load, the lights are on, what's going on? And then the polar bear came out of the storm and ate this guy, the security guard, right?
Oh my gosh.
It could have been him. It just, fate had it that he, ran out of pallets and they went looking for more. So it's crazy how far, and my background, I've just leaned on it. Some of the stories, from Canada growing up. And then that's how I got exposed, with my dad hauling fuel and rigs. That's how I got exposed to the oil industry. Because originally I went to school for civil engineering. I was building roads.
Okay.
To start with. And was on a road crew. We did chip seal, asphalt. I found myself, one of the last jobs I had, I was a consultant for an engineering firm, watching over a road crew, and the hours were ridiculous on it, just as much as the oil field, but the pay wasn't great. So then Schlumberger came along, recruited me.
So wait,
I ended up in the oil field.
So time out. First off, how are you working roads, and then Schlumberger recruit? Were you trying to get out there? Did you know someone in the oil field? Did you know someone at Schlumberger? I mean, how'd this happen?
So living up in Canada, the road building season ends, September, December, or September to, October, it starts getting cold, snowing. And so I'm done for the season. And I see this post about, Schlumberger and the oil field, and it's a global experience. And growing up, I always enjoyed football more than hockey. And maybe that's weird for a Canadian. I always liked the idea of Texas, some of the movies, whatever I had pictured in my mind. I wanted to live in Texas.
Okay.
And when I saw the posting with Schlumberger and that they were global and they worked down there, they were like, oh, and then I got into an interview. They're like, oh, you could work your way up and you could get a transfer to Texas. So it was right there and there. I decided I'm abandoning roads, and I'm going to work in the oil field. And so I ended up going in Southern Alberta, working for Schlumberger. And after about 3 years, sure enough, opportunity to come transfer to Texas came up, and I took it. And that's how I ended up down in Texas, in Cleburne, Texas, of all places, and met my wife. My wife is from Cleburne, Texas. And
what was your feelings when you came from Canada to Texas? Was it kind of like a culture shock? Was it like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do? I mean, what was the feelings, I guess, going through you, going from Canada to Cleburne, Texas?
Well, I was a little shocked because here I was thinking, America, it's the biggest, the biggest in the world, bigger than, larger than life. And I get down here, and one of the first places I'm working out of, actually, the original transfer was to Graham, Texas. And I'm like, okay, it's a little bit older town, and it's an oil field town. And all of a sudden, we go out to a restaurant one day, and I'm like, I'll have a beer. And they're like, sir, there's no beer here. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They're like, this is a dry county. And I couldn't even fathom this. And then how different some things were. And then they're like, oh, you got to drive across the county line. I'm like, what does the county line have to do with anything coming from Canada, right? And so there was certain things that just were different.
Yeah.
And then the oil field, it was more cookie cutter. Like up in Canada, you could be shallow gas, you could be deep gas, heavy oil, shallow, tar sands, you name it, right? But in Texas, it kind of, not to say there isn't, lots of
Hey, it's
high end
you right now. It's
offshore
you
work.
right now.
It's not that it's not as difficult. Like, I don't want to not to say that, but like in Canada, there's like H2S fields and all this other stuff. And you come down here and you're like, oh, okay, like, this is pretty cool. We're all drilling down and going horizontals to 22,000 feet, and it's over again.
A lot more. You feel there's a lot more challenges, I guess, in operations up in the Canadian oil and gas industry.
It's just different. Like, there's plenty of challenges here. Like East Texas is super, super hot. So don't get me wrong, but I'm just every day at Schlumberger, you could be sent to one part of the province, and you could be doing one thing and then a completely different thing. So it's I don't know. Maybe that's why there's so many Canadians down here. Like, because
there's tons of Canadians. There's Canadians and Scottish people, and I love them both. You know what I mean? It's always good banter whenever you sit across the table from one of those folks. So all right, so you're in Texas. Get me to May real quick. Get me to May 2020, and then let's kick this kicked off.
So yeah, me and my wife, we get down here. Life's, we're living together. Oil field up and down. We end up back in Canada for a little while. We end up coming back because we're our family. Like, we start having kids. So my wife wants to be by her mother-in-law. And I find myself working with Weatherford again. Second time around, made a good impression. Had some friends there. Ended up in Oklahoma, and then I got the opportunity to be the area manager for Weatherford, wireline.
Okay.
And the one thing where the story kind of starts is working for them. They lost their radiation license, so then they shut down the U.S. operations. But I'm in the Permian, so I just make a call one day, like the day that happens, call some friends at Schlumberger, and I just go get a job. Which was, the reason why we kind of moved to West Texas in the Permian in the first place, was that, you could always get an oil field job in the Permian. Right. Well, here comes now May 2020, where the stuff starts. And at the same time, COVID had started while I was at Schlumberger, and I could see the writing on the wall that no one's going to be taking meetings anymore. How do you do any sales or networking?
Right.
And I was working with a really, smart individual, Maciel Diaz.
Yeah.
Huge online presence. I might have had a little bit of more technical experience in the guns and stuff like that, but she had figured out something I hadn't figured out or put as much effort, emphasis on, was the networking.
Which was, so it's networking, but it includes online branding, personal branding. We had her right previously, and they that's all we discussed was online branding. They do a phenomenal job with that. And
so working with her, I realized that she had figured this out. It's very apparent. So I started posting some of my stuff, on LinkedIn, getting a little bit of engagement with the, sales at Schlumberger. Schlumberger finally, downgrades to the point where they don't have anybody in the Permian anymore. So here I am. I need a job.
Okay.
So what am I going to do? Well, I've already figured out the online stuff has worked a little bit, for Maciel, or a lot for her, and started working a little bit for me. Now, instead of pushing a product, I'm the product.
So how did you determine that it was actually working for you? I mean, so I guess you started doing some posts before you got let go in May 2020. And you saw it working for you. So what do you mean by that working for you?
When their first set of layoffs at Schlumberger, they laid even my boss off, but they kept me. And a little bit had to do with the interaction, the online stuff, trying to still, even though I couldn't get a meeting, still try and get meetings or networking stuff online. Like, I started shipping out, like, I had a contest one day and I messaged a guy who has a really big network, Sarge Summers. Mm-hmm. And I messaged him and I'm like, hey, can you share this thing? I'm going to have like a draw of like some of my swag products. I can't go in person to them, but I can mail it to them. So let's see how many people. And at the time, only, 20, 30 people were in the draw. And sure enough, I picked somebody and I sent them some hats and a power, you know, battery pack.
Okay. Okay. I'm with you.
And so they saw that. So that's why I kind of got a little bit of an extension of my life. So seeing that and realizing that, hey, there is something to this online, working and just not giving up, that I knew that had to be like the next step, if that made sense.
So once you found yourself, I guess you saw the post work, and you saw, I guess your longevity at the company be extended a little bit. So once you saw this, and I guess once you got let go in May, this is kind of when you turned yourself. You're like, okay, well, I need to start selling myself. I'm the product now, right?
100%.
So what was your, I guess, I mean, I remember when COVID hit, when it came posting on LinkedIn, I probably before COVID, I probably didn't use LinkedIn much whatsoever. It was boring. It was dull. It was a platform. It was strictly business. It was very, white collar. Like, let's discuss this. It was kind of boring to me. Since COVID, I've been getting on there a bunch more, and I was very hesitant about making posts. I maybe made one a week, maybe 2 a week. And I guess through the COVID and all that stuff, I started amping it up too. So I guess when you first started doing your posts and all that stuff, I guess what was the biggest obstacle for you to figure out like what you should post and what you shouldn't? I mean, what did you see, I guess, worked for you?
To me, it was about, I didn't have a massive factory to feature or something. So since I was the product, somehow with what I was doing, my family life, and then tie that into somehow with business. So that was the struggle or the challenge was, okay, I have a limited amount of, media. What can I do? So I started sharing like oil field stories, crazy things that I noticed or that happened to me as a field engineer, as Schlumberger, or as a manager, other things, financial, manager, like experiences or decisions I had to make. Like it really was just a matter of finding something that related to business and then putting it out there with, featuring a picture of me with my kid or something. How could that even be a business post? Because you're right. LinkedIn is, a professional network. You can't be putting, a picture, a selfie on there and being like, hey, here you go. And then hope to get some sort of engagement. So that was the challenge. So I always tried to make the posts based on like as if I was in an interview. And what were some of the interview questions?
What do you mean by that? You have a good point. So you just actually had an article where and this actually might help out people out there that are curious about kind of if I was to create an original post, how do I do this? Or if I was to create some sort of content, how do I do this? You had an article that was just published by the SPE?
Yeah, the Way Ahead magazine. They reached out to me and they were like, hey, we've been kind of following you. Would you write an article for us? And I just threw something kind of together and sent it to them.
So one of the things that I saw in there, you have a great mindset when you're doing this. Just for example, what you said in the article, what you just read now, you frame it like you're in an interview. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Like what do you mean by that?
So any of the posts were, if I ever was in an interview, what were some of the questions? I would try and answer those questions, or something that, I wish someone would look at my resume and then talk to me. And then what would I include on top of what's not in my resume, right? Like, what are the things that you don't, have on there that you wish the person, the hiring manager knew about you? I grew up on a farm, and that taught me, I was raised around machinery and cattle and getting up early, and, anything could happen, and you have to be adjustable, or, you have to be open to change and wear different hats and sort of stuff growing on the farm. So I talked about that. And I had one post where I drive the Lamborghini around the track, right? I'd never done anything like that before in my life. So then I was like, well, how do I frame this into like a LinkedIn post? So then it was like, well, I've asked, hey, are you a quick learner? Can you give me an example of that? And here I am. I did a track day and I was in the top 5% of people who drove around that track the first time I ever went around it. So I guess I do learn pretty quick. So that was the framing. That was the frame of mind. It was always like that I was talking to somebody, or that I'd walked out of a meeting, man, I wish I would have said, X. So then I would say X in the posts, to add to, sure, I had a lot of operational experience.
Yeah.
What else do I bring to it, right?
But then again, I mean, going back to your post and I guess what you're creating, I mean, the operational experience is there. It's on your LinkedIn profile. It's on your resume. I'm sure it's in all these different hiring managers' mailboxes, right? But what you're doing, and I think this is something that should be echoed and repeated, you're bringing your authentic personality. You're bringing your qualities, what makes you a person, a husband, a father, a coworker. You're bringing that to the table. And so I do like how you kind of tie, whether it's an activity that's driving a Lamborghini or whether it's working out, and you're taking that second or third step and thinking, okay, well, how does this actually correlate to who I am as a worker, as a teammate, as I guess an asset to the team, which I love that about you. And that's what I think is important. You got to show, I guess, authenticity, and you got to be genuine,
and you got to be positive too. Like if I ever found myself like in the post going, hey, I did this, but I'm not like I immediately deleted the but or the however or something. And I just kept the positivity stuff. Like anybody who worked with me when I was first starting out, I wasn't that positive. Like growing up on a farm made me
What were you like growing up?
Maybe a little too cynical or something. I love, sarcasm is my favorite thing. So, and when I, I'm sitting here resting, it looks like I'm mad all the time. So I would maybe use that to my advantage. But if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be more positive. Be open to like when they made the goals sometimes at Slumberjay, and it was just like impossible to get to. And I would just let them know. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Instead of taking it as a challenge, right? Like I really do look at some of the stuff now and being like, well, that's probably impossible, but maybe I'll think of a way to try and get there, right? Like it's a lot different mindset than I was when I was younger. And I tried to convey that, I have grown from when I started, nearly 20 years ago. So, and I think everybody does. And at the same time, I'm sure lots of people out there have run into me when I have bad days like anybody else.
Yep.
What I've also tried to take from that is other people have bad days too. So just let it go if you had a bad experience and go from there, because you never know what people are going through at the time. And it just,
I completely agree with that. I mean, someone cuts you off on the road, I always, tell my wife and my daughter, I'm like, well, guess they had to go poop. You know what I mean? Like there's always a reason. I feel like there's always a reason why someone's kind of being bad to you that day or kind of being not kind to you that day. For anyone that's kind of followed Keith during this whole process from May until, I guess, when you got your job, probably 3 weeks ago, a month ago or something like that?
This is my third week. So
it's your third week now.
Knock on wood, hopefully I get a fourth.
So you've don't say that. So you have constantly, your posts have constantly remained, and I want to talk about the positive side of it in a little bit, but how do you keep, I guess, the motivation of continuously putting stuff out there and continuously putting out content that's positive when I've seen your stuff? You've had interviews before. You've had second interviews before. I made actually a couple memes that I thought that would relate to you because you've had 3 interviews. You know what I mean? So how do you, I guess, when you're doing everything and you're putting out these contents and you're doing everything, how do you, I guess, continue to not let, I guess, I keep saying I guess, but how do you not let not failures, but I guess not what you want, how do you keep going? I mean, how do you get the next day?
There was definitely rough days. Don't get, there was days where I just was like, I don't want to get out of bed, but I got to take the kids to school and you gotta just keep going on. But I had a great discussion, and the advice in the SPE article comes from a guy, Jonathan Rhodes, you had on your show. And he actually took the time and he had a conversation with me after I saw that show, and I reached out to him. And he had some great advice. And he was just like, look, if you're getting the interviews and people are calling you and you're getting the meetings, and even though you're getting all the way to the end and there was 500 candidates and you're down to the final 2 and it wasn't you, you're doing the right things. Like it could go the opposite way where lots of people aren't hearing anything back.
Right.
And if you decide to change what you're doing, then it could get worse. Like it's not that And at that point, when it's down to two people, it's not you, it's the organization, what they had in mind. Maybe it's a connection, maybe it's something else, but you just got to keep going on. That's what I've tried to like convey to some people is that, you know, I had a poll on LinkedIn. I know everyone hates the polls now. And I was like, what is the most, you know, what are you looking for in a new hire? And one of the things, you know, I put positivity or put resilience, because to me, that's the biggest thing. You got to just keep pushing on. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you're kicked down.
Yeah.
And during this year, I got to give a shout out. Like, I've been a little bit closer to God too, like talking to him, and you read the Bible, like you just you can't rush God's plan, and you just kind of got to move forward. Like, you just have some faith. You're doing the right things. You're getting the interviews. People are calling meetings. I was the busiest unemployed guy, you know, like definitely. Like, people would call me up. Like, I had this one friend who would help me or want some landscaping help. And every once in a while, you know, I'd be able to I actually did a post where I dug a tree stump out of his yard for him. And it really, you know, I didn't have a lot of time for a lot of other things because I had a meeting or I had an interview or I had a call or, you know, and then David reached out, right? And I was doing his show. So then I would prep for David's show. And then, you know, with kids. And then I just kept myself busy all the time. And that's the biggest, you know, advice I'd give to any job seeker out there is stay busy, because then you don't have time to get so down on everything. The house should be clean. Everything should be taken care of. Change the air filters in the house. Like, just, you got to keep pushing forward, and looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. Like, you have to be networking. You have to be reaching out. And just because it didn't work over here, like, there was times where I thought it was in the bag. I knew the person who was, I knew a person that was best friends with the hiring manager who was recommending me. I had a great interview, and then I didn't get the job. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what happened, but like I said, Jonathan Rhodes, great advice. Just keep moving forward. And that's what I would, you know, anybody who's not getting replies, don't worry about it. Like, just you got to do the network and have them come to you, because the job I have now, there was no application. They reached out to me. So that's what I would say to anybody out there is bring them to you. Like, because the jobs that they're posting out there, they probably have an internal candidate or somebody else already. So bring them.
And they have to post. So you know, this is a very, obviously, you know, it's a very touchy subject. You know, so when people lose their jobs, there's a sense of frustration, embarrassment. There's a lot of stuff.
Oh man, I'm there. Like, your job, first thing people ask you is like, what do you do? And when you don't have a job, you try and find like a nice way of saying like, hey, I'm unemployed, but there's no, like, it's not great. And so it's so big, but you have to stay positive, because if you're down and you're not, you know, if you're negative, nobody wants that. Like, people, you'll get sympathy. You will, you know, people like, oh man, I'll try and help, but you're not going to win anybody to your cause, because during my little process here, I had hundreds of people either sending me, you know, job posts, commenting, like trying to find, like, I was part of a team. It wasn't just me at this point. Yeah. It was lots and lots of people, like yourself. I think it was a Mark Patterson.
Yep, Mark Patterson.
Yeah, he even got me an interview. He guest on your show. You introduced us. Like, here I was. The post, it might not have been always hiring managers, but it would, really good people would then go, hey, I think this guy, you know, I have a place for him over here or over there. So it's a matter of making your team bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where the networking comes in. Like, there's so many people that I know, you know, from my Weatherford days or Schlumberger days that are looking for jobs, where I would just, like, I'm begging them to get online, because I know they're great people. They're very hireable. If I had my own company, I would hire them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I've tried to convey to them, look, man, this worked for me. You don't got to do a lot in it. And I know there's a sense that social media is, you know, it's for kids, or I'm just not good enough.
There's definitely a stigma.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely a stigma to it. But at this point,
why not? Why not try?
What do you have to lose at this point, right? Especially for 8 or 9 months. And be genuine about it. Like yesterday, I got a message from a gentleman. He used to be one of the top consultants that we used to work for at a company. I don't want to get too specific in it, but I reached out to him because I was like, oh man, he's on LinkedIn now. And I go to connect. He connects with me and he sends me this copy and paste first thing message that's like, hey, I'd really like to talk to you about your position and this and that. And then he attaches his resume. And I'm like, hey man, don't you remember me? Like, why wouldn't you start off with, hey man, how's it going? And all this other stuff. Like, if you want some advice, like, start off a genuine conversation. Don't do a big copy and paste message, because no one's going to read that. Right.
No,
so it's,
I mean, you and I both know when you get those copy and paste and they haven't even looked at your profile, they haven't looked at anything. It's like, it's just a copy and paste. It's not genuine. But going back to that, I mean, going back to, losing your job, having that feeling, not only that, getting these interviews. I mean, you kept on getting these interviews, and it was still, is it me? Is it me? Is it me? And we've shared some of those comments too, offline, like, man, is it me and all this stuff? It's like, no, it's not. How do you deal with that? I mean, what do you tell yourself, I guess, when it's clearly you want to look at yourself like, I'm the one that's wrong. I should have a job. I don't like telling people I don't have a job. I don't like not getting this job after 2 or 3 interviews. What goes on in your mind, I guess, during that? And I guess, how do you keep moving forward?
There's a great book, Extreme Ownership, and you just kind of got to look at it where, okay, it was on you. You didn't get this one, but you need another one, right? And eventually this is going to happen, and it gets tiring, it wears on you. But if you are as good as you think you are, that you're going to be prepared for this, future position, then you're going to keep moving forward. And that's all you got to do, is just keep moving forward. And there was plenty of times where, and people would be recommending me, and they would be like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to you. And then they would go like, oh, we really love what you're doing on LinkedIn, and you're getting all this reach and this engagement. We don't even know how you're doing it. That's amazing. And then they go, wait, but you haven't been doing, this for 5 years? And I'll be like, oh man, I did all this by just kind of figuring out, just on my own.
Put yourself out there.
Like, one guy needed a marketing director or a manager or something, and then he wouldn't even look. Like, he was like, oh yeah, we've seen all this stuff, and then he's like, wait, you haven't been doing marketing for 5 years? And I was like, no. And
that was a roadblock.
Oh man, well, like, how do you even function? And it's just like, oh, okay, man, like I don't know, I guess, like, I figured this out.
Isn't that frustrating though? I mean, you got the online presence, you obviously, what you're doing is working, you know what I mean? And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, because it didn't fit this bullet point of this job description, sorry, it's not going to go to you. It's going to go to someone that fits this bullet point, but might not have the impact. Isn't that frustrating?
It is, but at the same time, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And you can spend your energy dwelling on that. And I'm guilty of it. As I've learned along this process, I've learned you got to stay positive all the time. Like, it's hard to, and that in itself takes work. Like, to sit down and be like, okay, I've kind of had my little pity party. It's time to get doing something. And that's where, I would clean the house or something, chasing after, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So there's always something to clean. And then once you get done, you feel like you've done a good job and you feel a little bit better. So then you kind of like, okay, what's the next step? What can I do? And LinkedIn isn't about posts. Like, I would be nowhere if I just post. It's the engagement with everybody else's posts. Because
what do you mean by that?
You get back what you put out there. And had I just put posts and just waited for people to comment, it would have never worked.
Right.
This is a completely reciprocal relationship that's out there. If you're not commenting, engaging, being positive on there, being supportive to others, they're not going to support you. Like, maybe you're, so interesting that you get it. I've seen the odd guy post, oh, I've just been doing this for 6 months and now I have 1 million views and it's easy because, I post a lot and that's just all you have to do. And I'm like, okay, maybe that worked for you, but for me, it was because I posted on your stuff, and then you posted on mine, and every time you posted on mine, I made sure to respond to yours. Same thing, lots of people, Donnie Davis, Mark Swindon, he was in there. There's countless people Janie Snelson is another one. I saw her post, and then she saw mine, and then it breaks out into the real world where now that we've gone back and forth a few times, now we're connected in the real world and we hang out together. So it's amazing how how reciprocal it is. I've seen people put out posts and then they never respond to anybody other stuff. And then they go, well, it didn't work for me, so I guess it's just not going to work. And I'm like, man, did you even, comment on anybody else's stuff? Like, how do you think this support structure works, right? Like, the amount of time you have to put, it isn't 5 minutes, but, it's not 8 hours a day, but you have to be reciprocal. You have to respond to the messages, even though there's lots of solicitation on LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's sale. And lots of copy and paste. I don't get upset at it. They're just trying to do their thing. Maybe they're good at it. Maybe they're not. The odd time, if I got time, I'll be like, hey, man, this message didn't work. But it would have worked had you, actually checked out something of mine and addressed it.
If you didn't copy and paste.
And the odd person would respond great to that. And then they've gotten better at LinkedIn. And that's what I tried. And then some people, I'll see posts. And the odd post where they copy and paste the same thing. Hey, I need a job. I'm willing to do this. And they'll do it like every 3 or 4 days. And it's the exact same thing over and over again. And I'm like, you're not really demonstrating any creativity doing the same thing over and over again. So I would even reach out and be like, hey, man, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but if you'd like, check out some of my stuff, or I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about some of this. And some people have been like amazing. They'll take it and they'll run with it. And then other people just go, hey, yeah, thanks. Or they don't even respond at all. And it's like, okay, like I tried, like I just trying to share and pay it forward.
There definitely is, I feel like a response, I guess, discrepancy when something is very, boo-hoo, look at me, like I need this, Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear.
No, you're 100% right.
It's heartbreaking to see, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I mean, I feel like that's one of those things that if you don't have to engage, I feel like people kind of stay away. At least I do personally. I'm like, poor guy, poor girl. Like, I just hope they find something. But when something's positive, you're more inclined to share it. You're more inclined to talk about it. You're more inclined to engage with that person. So can you talk to me about, I guess, genuine positivity and I guess genuine posts versus like, you see these like BS, like motivational posts, like, leaders like eagles, they seldom stay in flocks and they soar, like these BS, like positive stuff that's like hoo rah rah, but it's not genuine. Can you talk to me about, I guess, your approach to creating genuine positive content?
Basically, I would think of something like, what would I want to see? And then if I ever during what I was writing had a but or however, or I'm not that great at this, but
those are keywords.
I just deleted it immediately. I kept it like, hey, this is a great day. Reach out to people or share profiles or this. It's going to make you feel better. I would share charities, all kinds of stuff. But if there was never a negative or however or something. It was just straight to the good stuff. And let's focus on that, because that's what's going to, make you feel better at the end of the day. And that's what other people are going to respond to as well, right? Like if you start dwelling on the negative stuff all the time,
no one wants to engage with that.
No one wants, but even yourself, you're not going to feel up, like you're not going to win the battle. Like it's going to wear you down. Like you're becoming your own worst enemy by focusing on any of that stuff. And I could bring up all kinds of stuff, but what's the point in doing it? Because people will, it doesn't matter what you post about. People will find a way to be negative with it. So just be genuine. Talk about whatever you want. Like I had a post where I talked about, picking up some trash.
Yeah.
Just picking up trash in a car. That's it. It got 30,000 views.
Was that the poll you did about was that the poll you did about the clean car?
It was just, I thought a good interview question would be, and among many, like, in an interview, nobody just asked one. I just was sitting there thinking like, oh man, I got to come up with a post. And I always kind of thought, man, do you clean up your car before you come to the interview? Like, you get dressed, you get a haircut and stuff. Do you clean up your car? And I'm not meaning like wash the outside, because not everybody has that time or the resources, but you at least pick up the trash. And all I specified was just, is the inside neat and tidy?
Right.
And you know what? 95% of the people you engage, and hundreds of people interacted with the post. So obviously there was something to it, right?
Right.
But the 5% came out of the woodwork from all over the place. And if you need a good laugh sometimes, like I was
just read some of the haters on LinkedIn,
like how illegal it was and judgmental and I was just like, and then the people were like blaming their kids because you couldn't ever pick anything. And I was like, man,
I'll blame my kid all day long. I have no problem with that.
I was like, I have a 46-year-old.
Excuses.
Hey, to me, each his own. I don't care. Like it, but I was like, who are you winning over by some of these comments? The way you're doing it, like I just don't understand. Like, okay, I just don't get it. And so that's why I always tried to keep the positivity. And there was also a little counterpoint to it, because I figured the oil field needed some positivity as well. Like some people ask me, why are you sticking in the oil field? And to be honest, I touched the waters with a few other outside the oil field things, opportunities. And to me, it's the people. Like I'm a little like off the cuff and free maybe with my opinions, that I'm pretty sure if I worked for Amazon, I'd probably be canceled by Amazon if I like just threw it out there one day. Like, because like you said, one of my favorite things is sarcasm, and it doesn't seem to go very far outside, the oil field. These are my people. Like they understand me, like where I'm coming from. So, or at least, I don't know, maybe for the most part.
No, that's the thing. I'm the same way. It's like, it's the people that make the industry. You know what I mean? We have such great people in our industry, and that's kind of that's the reason for this podcast. To get to people, to get to know the person behind the position. That's kind of been an added benefit of this. So going back to, I guess, your positive approach, your positive spins on things. You also, I guess, in the meantime, okay, real quick, if you were to give yourself one piece of advice, you wish you knew something then now, what would that be? Because then I want to talk to you against your side projects and your networking events that you've been doing.
You know what? I wouldn't go back and change a thing, because the whole process was a great learning process the entire time, right? Maybe don't be afraid to offend anybody out there. Like at the end, I kind of figured out, maybe a little too late, like I tried to keep all my posts positive and a little unoffensive.
Yep.
But when you had a little bit of controversy, like if you want a big post, anybody out there, ask a question like that's like which came first, chicken or the egg? And people will come out of the woodwork to give their opinion on it.
Do mass work. Yeah, just something like that.
And they will engage with each other and start fighting. And then that just if that's what you're really after, if you want that big post. To me, it was always about drawing people to check out my profile, to see my past experience. And that's it. And it was a great learning experience the entire time. So I wouldn't, really go back and change, because it helped me evolve and learn into where I am now.
And again, I think that goes back to being genuine. I mean, I look, if your goal is to have 100% of the people in this world like you, first off, you're going to fail. Second off, you're not going to be your true self. I think if you're okay with having that fringe group of people not get along with you or not see eye to eye with you, but at the same time, if you're showing your true self, I think that's when you're going to start gathering momentum. You're going to start gathering, not internet clout, but you're going to start, I guess, creating those relationships, those real relationships, because you're being genuine at the same time.
100%. You got to be genuine and show, especially job hunting. There's a little bit of a stigma too, that you don't have a job for a reason. Like I've seen during this pandemic, plenty of people, have been able to switch jobs. Well, there's plenty of unemployed people who haven't been able to get a job. And
really good unemployed people too. This downturn wasn't a question on performance. It was a question on if you're below this number in the organizational chart. I mean, you're seeing a lot of good engineers, a lot of good salespeople, a lot of good procurement people being let go, but it's not a question on how they performed at their job or not.
100%, right? But then after time goes by, it seems, like I said, there's a little bit of a stigma. So you got to convey, one, that you're still in the fight, and that's where the positivity comes in and the resilience. You can't be tired, even if you are tired. You got to keep moving forward. You got to show that you still have the fight in you, because how are you going to show up on day one if you do get hired? And if you're so tired and beat down from the job search, like, how are you going to be able to contribute? So you have to convey that you're still in the fight, and that, the job, not having a job hasn't like defined you as, you're not the unemployed guy. You're just, you're working on other stuff. Like, there's plenty of free things to work on. Like, I did an oil field or wireline directory, David Gibson, huge, his idea helped. He's like, encourage that. He's like, why don't you work on this? And I was like, great idea. So I was just typing away, and there's lots of other things. And like you were about to bring up, a networking.
So real quick, going back to that wireline directory, I think that was such a great thing, because we had Dina Dabowski on here, and she asked a great question. She said, what have you been? It's not have you been working from COVID to now. It's what have you done in COVID through now. And Jonathan Rhodes, who you brought up earlier, he said, just, do something valuable, So this wireline directory you created, I mean, you weren't being paid for that. You weren't, that wasn't your job. That was just an added, I guess, hobby or task that you took on to show your value and your work ethic and what you're able to do if given the chance.
Exactly. What I could bring to, an organization. Here's an example. I did this for free while sitting around not getting paid. What would I pause? What could I do if you were paying me, right? And it was to raise profile, a few different things. There's lots of, like, I was learning LinkedIn, like working on my Spanish here, a few other things, coding, a few courses like that. Believe me, there's a nice online free Learn to Code. That language is a little bit more complicated than Spanish, but
let's not get into that. Let's not get into coding right now around the Rotary. We're going to go to 0 viewers, I feel like. That's just my opinion.
Definitely not a hot topic. But there was lots of things to take care of. Working with my family, working on my house, just working out on myself, right? And then conveying that in the posts was that I'm not just sitting around waiting for a job. I'm going to be an even better guy when you finally do hire me.
And so also once you got hired by ARC, the entire network that you made in the past, was it 9-10 months, that transfers over, because you made those relationships, you made those connections, you've identified with those people, and the banter's there. So that's going to carry over. So it's just going to make you a better employee at this role, I feel like.
And the networking, right? Like, I walk into a room and somebody recognizes me, so it helps break the ice. Like, there was a drilling engineer from Cimarex at this one thing, and he's like, man, do I know you? Because you look really familiar. And I'm like, oh, maybe it was LinkedIn. And it just starts a conversation, right? Instead of a cold, hey, how's it going? I'm so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped on so many different levels. And that's anybody else out there, that's at least, it may not get you the job today, but it's going to help later on. It's not hurting anything. It really isn't for getting to be known out there.
It keeps you relevant. You know what I mean? I mean, just like back when you were able to do breakfast runs, you know what I mean? In sales, I mean, it's not like you're going there to sell a job that specific day. You're going there to be relevant, to be seen, to be, oh, that's right. Okay, if we ever need XYZ, JP, if we never need, John keeps coming around, or Samantha keeps coming around. So you're staying relevant. And that's the exact same thing you're doing with your posts. So you're getting in people's faces without getting in people's faces, pretty much.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I dig that. Hey, talk to me about this real quick. I mean, I've had a couple conversations with Chief Tozin and Kelsey Dean and a couple other people on this podcast. I'm always, and I talk about this too. Don't wait for the opportunity. Create it yourself. Whether that's, people are always like, oh, industry events this, industry events that. But I mean, you and I were talking. I mean, how often are they really? I mean, they're probably about once a month, maybe, once every 2 months. But what you did, a couple years ago, me and my buddies did OPEC, oil field professionals eagerly consuming. It was a happy hour. You know, we had customers come in, but it was small. You know, there was the crew change that Chief did and Kelsey Dean were a part of. So all these little small things that they put together, that was their networking events. They weren't waiting on industry events. They created their own opportunities. And you did recently also with, and obviously it doesn't have a name yet, but you made a post called Sweating in the Permian. Talk to me about, I guess, the want to create, I guess, a workout group and another avenue, a new avenue to networking.
Like, so there are, you know, the Permian has its fair share of happy hours as well, and it's standing around. And I just, you know, for working out and trying to live a little bit healthier, I'm getting older, I'm getting a little bit heavier. So try to avoid some of that. I was like, what's a different option? And I always thought, you know, plenty of people in the oil field like working out. Like I don't know, it's part of the lifestyle. So I decided, hey, Wednesdays at this gym, 3 to 5, Payne's Gym in Odessa, let's meet up. I'll talk to the gym. Laura Payne, the owner, she was all down for it. She's like, oh, anything that helps us, you know, advertise is amazing. And we'll work out some kind of thing, you know, first time's free. And then second time after, maybe it'll be like half of what the normal drop-in fee is. And I'm like, well, I don't see like hundreds of people ever attending this, but I see, you know, 5 to, you know, maybe at the max 10. And then you're actually going to get to know these people
right
during this time, because it's going to be a lot more intimate setting, right? You're not going to get no killer workout, you know, if you're networking and you're shooting the shit at the same time, right? But you're going to get to know people. Pamela Castleberry, she was one of the first people to attend. Curtis Randolph on here as well, and I got to really know them, right? Like, whereas, you know, at
an industry event, it's you and
so many. It's loud. You're going from person to person. You don't really get in depth with, you know, how many kids you got, you know, where did you go to school, all this other things. Just basically you get down to what do you do in the industry, and like, how long have you been doing it? So it's, to me, it just was another option instead, you know, a healthier option where I thought in today's world might be welcome. So it's, after about 4 or 5 times, there's still just 2 or 3 people time that come, but hopefully maybe it'll turn into more. Who knows?
So, hey, look, we're kind of coming up on about an hour of this right now, and obviously I want to get to the audience right now. I think Christopher Monte sends a great question in, but before we do you have any, I guess, do we cover everything that you kind of want to talk about? I guess your online engagement and your positive outlook and your positive posts and your genuine posts. Do you have anything else that we want to touch on before we switch over to the audience?
The last thing was how, you know, basically I got my job. Like, for anybody out there who you think nobody's watching any of that stuff, it completely, lots of people are watching. And Jason Arsenault, owner or founder of Arc Energy, he calls me up out of the blue. Like, there was no posting, there was no, and this is what I'm telling to the people out there.
He called you out of the blue for your current role?
Boom, just calls me up. And he's like, hey, Keith, I've seen, you know, your stuff. It's real positive. And he's trying to, like, doesn't go and really say there's a job right at the bat, but he's like kind of like feeling me out. And then he's like, well, we might kind of have this opportunity. And at first, because it wasn't wireline and it wasn't a few other things, and it was production equipment, and I'm like, I'm used to, you know, in wireline, I walk in a room and I know my stuff. So it's very comfortable, like, lead a meeting. But now with production, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, vessels, sounds good. They hold stuff, right? Yeah. So he calls me up, and at first I'm not convinced, but he's like, he convinces me to meet with this guy, Mikey Mahoney. And we meet up, and this Mikey guy, I don't know if you know him. You're in Houston, JP. You guys should hook up one of these days. Amazing guy.
Anyone with the last name Mahoney, I'm going to want to get along with, because Police Academy, you know?
And man, that's part, like, he was awesome. And I was like, okay, so Jason reaches out to me, and actually it doesn't seem like there's this super script, right? Because all the other interviews, like, check all the boxes. Do you have a certain amount of stuff? And okay, so Mike, like, man, these are 2 really, really good guys. And then they're like, well, you know, we're really, really interested in you. And I'm like, man, if these 2 guys are this awesome, like, who's the rest? So I meet with this Adam Ross over video, and they test the waters with me. And I'm like, now I'm convinced, like, I want this job, right? I had something else going at the time, but I was like, this is the place like I want to be because of the culture. Like I don't know shit about production, but these guys seemed like to be like who I could work with.
Yeah.
And that ultimately is where I find myself now. And it's amazing because then they came to me, and that's what I'm telling all the job seekers out there. My biggest thing, you have no idea what the other companies don't have posted, what they're thinking of. So if you throw yourself out there and you demonstrate a creativity or an ability, they might notice and just make a position for you because they see it, right? Don't wait for the job postings because half of them are for internal postings. And so it's just, that's the reason they're not getting back to you. They'll test the waters. They'll send messages maybe, but to me, you can't rely too heavily on that. And that's the biggest advice I have.
You know what? I first off, I'm super happy for you, super excited for you, because I remember my previous job at Pinergy, when I was interviewing there, they said, look, whether the position's here or not, we want the right people on the bus. You know what I mean? And I think that's so cool, and that speaks volumes of them that to hire the person. You know what I mean? Because I think with the right people in the mix, I mean, it's you create the right team, you create the right environment to, I guess, to blow and go at it. You know what I mean? So I definitely love how you're working with people that you want to work with.
And they've been great and supportive, right? Like they're watching right now and it's a work day. Like here I am, an hour of the day, just kind of
getting it out there to 7 people. No, there's more than that watching, but hey, let's do you want to finish up that story? Or you want to hand it over to the audience real quick?
In the end, they decided to go with me. I was ecstatic and didn't even hesitate. It was a great offer. We're in a downturn. You think, Keith, you're desperate. You're going to take anything. And I told people right off the bat, and that may have turned other people off. My wife's successful. Big shout out to my wife, Erin. She does Baylor Girl sales for Nordic Ice. She does great. And so I was in a great position where, and, we were great financially. We didn't have 5 boats to pay for and a few other things. So, I was like, huh?
You're not true oil field then, I feel like. You have 5 boats to pay.
You've seen my truck. That was probably my one, gift to myself at the beginning of 2020 that I shouldn't have done. And then, 2020 happened. And then here I have this big shiny truck and it's like, oh.
Well, and now you got to get a job to go to that truck.
And I do. I get to drive around and visit people, and people actually recognize that truck, if you can believe it, from some of the LinkedIn posts.
You know what, man? I dig that. You put yourself out there. You're uncomfortable. You had no marketing background experience, but you don't need a marketing background. You just need to be genuine. You need to be yourself. You put yourself out there. There's a couple opportunities that didn't pan out for you, and now you find yourself, again, out of a product line that you're not comfortable with, but working with the people that you want to work with. You know what I mean? So it sounds like an awesome success story, even the mishaps along the way. Everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. And there could be another great chapter if I actually do figure out this production stuff and actually, help them out here in the Permian. So, remains to be seen. I have, great high hopes, but,
because your team members at ARC are listening, you got this figured out. You know this stuff, so let's not pretend that you don't. So let's hand this over to a couple of questions. Whoever's in the audience has a question, we're going to try to get around to the majority of them, all of them, if we can. But this one's from, I guess, your co-star on the Vidor Locksmith, 2-3 weeks ago. Keith, do you feel like you had any leverage for compensation, even though you were unemployed at the time?
Definitely a little bit, because they had come to me, right? And that's where I feel that if you're creating like your own opportunities and they want you, they're not going to come to you for like a discount, right? Like it's not, where was the peak money a few years ago, but I wasn't working for, I have 20 years of experience, and I think they recognize that too, right? Even though I wasn't a production guy, like they could have been like, you don't have any production experience, you don't have this. They could have went in all the things I didn't have, but they went into all the things that I did have. And I had a few other opportunities, and I was like, where are we on this compensation scale, right? Like, are we in the ballpark here? And Mikey Mahoney was straight up with me. I gave him a call after somebody else gave me a call, another company. And I was like, okay, sounds like we're on board. So right now, Are things as good as they were before? No, but at the same time, if a company wants you and you're worth, like, your worth, they'll get you. Otherwise, if it starts out like a bad relationship here, it's going to end badly, especially with oil is tracking up. And it's only if it gets even higher by the end of the year, people are just going to be jumping to something better because people are going to start paying that bigger money. So you meet them somewhere halfway right now. And I think a lot of, the good companies are doing that.
And that's the thing too. I mean, I think, satisfaction, happiness at work is so important right now. I mean, if anything, COVID, I guess, showed that, you know what I mean? I mean, you got to be happy with what you're doing. You know what I mean? You got to be happy with who you're working with. You got to be happy with the product and the culture that you're with. So if it's one of those things where it's like, you're not picking the people you're working for, or you don't find yourself in the situation to pick the people you work for, I wouldn't choose something that you're going to be miserable with in a month. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, you're going to be looking for your next job.
Yeah. And I was in a great position. My wife was, very supportive. She's like, don't jump into anything just for the fact that you need a job. She's like, we're okay. We've made great, decisions in the past. There's nothing to rush into. She's like, eventually there's going to come a time where, we're going to have to make a decision. We're not there yet. And, going forward, let's make the right decision. And I'm very, very, very happy with the way everything went. Right. Because
sounds like you are, man.
I don't know. So far, so good. Having fun. The odd thing, I mentioned God before, but it just seemed like, one post was like, if God brings you the job, God will bring you the customers too. And I was like, man, I've gotten a couple messages about vessels and separators and stuff. And I was like, what? Really? Like out of most random situations. So it's,
Noah's Ark. That's the vessel right there.
Yeah.
So we have
one of the, go ahead.
Sure, go on. It's David. He'll be listening anyway. Go on.
Need another rep lost. You never know. To me, there was one question I think I saw on the page, the event page. A couple people asked, what would I want hiring managers to know? I think was maybe the gist. Hiring managers basically, don't back the person into a corner, and they're trying their best to stay as cool as possible. If they're not like tripping over themselves with enthusiasm for your job, like just know that they're trying to stay as cool as possible. I had a couple people like message me. They're like, man, I had this interview, Keith, and I talked to the guy and everything seemed cool. And then, I heard from my friend who kind of got me the interview that they didn't think I was excited enough for the job, so they didn't offer it to me. And I was just like, what? Did they think you were qualified? Yeah, that's why they interviewed me. But because I wasn't so excited, and I was just like, ooh, man, like, I don't know, looking for a job's tough. So you're trying to, I don't want to say you're playing poker, but you're just trying to be normal. So I don't know. Like, to me, I would give the doubt.
I feel like that's easier said than done when there's so much pressure. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got to get this job. I got to nail this interview. I got to be myself. And you end up kind of bounding yourself up where you can't be genuine.
And very, very true. And I just, to me, the hiring managers out there, people have been looking for a long time. They're not sure about themselves right now. So it's, give them the chance to be themselves and reference some of the past experiences they have, because in the past they were who you probably are looking for right now, to be honest.
So does that question answer the question that Janie wrote on the
is that the one where
it's what are the qualities you most desire when looking for an employer?
Okay, no, that was a different one. So an employer, people keep talking about culture, and it shouldn't just be a word. Like, it shouldn't be a buzzword used by the corporate guys. It should be like somehow filtered all the way down. And That's what, after meeting Jason, who then, below, like, then there was Mikey, and then Adam, they were all the exact, like, same. Like, they were all very positive, very, like, I don't know how to describe people's personalities, like, being the same. Like, they weren't like robots or anything, but they were just like you could tell they were all on the same page, working from the same table. Sorry?
It's a team. They jive well together.
Very, very. And they were worried about, bringing someone in and messing up that jive too, right? Like that was the most important thing to them. It wasn't like how many production, clients am I bringing in on day one. It was like, we had this one guy didn't really work too well with our team. That's what they were really worried about. And to me, that was amazing. And a lot of other places, they talk about, oh, we have this great culture. And then they just like the guy who talks to the culture never talks to the guy, on the ground. And the guy's like, culture? What does that mean? Right? Like, so that's one of the big things of looking at an employer right now. Who's got the culture? What did they do to survive the downturn? Did they try and save employees? Right. It would be one thing. Like if they're hiring again, why aren't they rehiring the people they let go? Like that was a couple, interviews I had. I'm like, so why aren't you just rehiring the guy you let go? And a lot of places would dance around the question, and I think that's going to be a bigger thing for all the people who are doing the hiring these days is, what have you done to survive the big COVID thing, right? Because you're figuring out from the employee side, what did you do? Well, I learned Spanish and I did all this other stuff. What did you guys do? Well, we didn't do anything. Right. So
no, I think that's an excellent point, excellent question to ask the company. How did y'all survive the downturn? I think that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. We have another question here from Leroy Matthias. Keith Stelter, did the regular posting on LinkedIn help you personally in applying for jobs in terms of the reactions, comments, messages, and opinions shared?
Like people would see the engagement if that's what he's getting at. Like personally in applying, there was a few jobs that I got that one particular company was looking for area manager. So I applied online. I saw the opening, and then I reached out through LinkedIn to find who the hiring manager was. And I engaged with him on some of his posts and then some messages, and then got to talk to him. And off the bat, I wasn't going to get an interview. And then I did get an interview, and I got a second interview, but in the end, it didn't work out. So find out who, if it is a legitimate posting and they need somebody, find out who made the post, who's going to be the hiring manager for the area, start engaging on their account if they have LinkedIn. Now, if they don't have LinkedIn, there might be events that they go to. There might be other, check your network. Maybe somebody knows them that interacts with that company. You got to do your best here. There isn't a solution for every position, obviously, but there is a way to, network your way into at least a conversation.
At least you're in the circle. I mean, if they can't use you, I mean, they might be like, actually, I got a buddy over at this company that is looking for someone just like you. So it's networking, expanding your network. We got another question from Mike Davidson. My question is, does having so many jobs on your resume seem to hurt, or is it more of a testimony of your job experience? In other jobs, it seems to say that this person gets burnt out or is a job hopper. And that's true. I mean, sometimes you see people like they'll bounce around every 8 months, 2 years.
So I have quite a few on mine as well. For one, radiation got lost, lost their license in New Mexico, right? You shut down the company. Like, I can't stop that. COVID too. Another one, I worked over in Iraq, and then like ISIS was coming in too. Like there's been a few downturns as well. So if you have an explanation for that, and that's where the networking comes in, is this is the stuff you want to, like, why do you have so many jobs? Can it be misconstrued? 100%. But if you get in chart, like in front of the person doing the hiring, and you can speak to why, like, hey, I had this opportunity over here, had a baby over here, this and that, and there's some sort of explanation other than just chasing, an extra buck an hour or something, to break it down in a simple, like, it just wasn't money that you were chasing after. I think more people would be, very open to discussing it. Your network's going to be pretty big if you worked in a lot of different places, right? Just from knowing the people at the different organizations. So,
but that's where the effectiveness of being genuine and telling your story. So So people will understand kind of what you're going through. Oh, he's got this lag because but I've seen his stuff on LinkedIn. He's been looking, he's been doing this, he's been doing. So it's actually, I mean, if you're telling your story and you're showing your personality, what's going on, and being genuine about it, in your real life, then I don't think you might not need to fill in those answers too much.
Exactly. Right. And then now you're bringing, like I said, you got to bring the opportunities to yourself. You can't wait for them to come. The applications online, it hasn't been too many jobs I've gotten in my life where I applied online and they got back to me. Maybe one of the first was Slumberjay when I was, first starting out. Was I filled the online application. There was countless during this job search where just nobody got back to me, like companies that I was just a perfect fit for. And the odd time, like somebody from the company would look at my profile and then just
go away.
And like to each his own, like I'm not, everybody's cup of tea or what have you, right? But I have the same doubts, but it just there's no point in spending your energy on there. Like there just isn't.
No, I like that. It's important. It's important not to set your energy on. Oh, I didn't get at this because of this. I don't have a job. You can always shift your energy to be something more productive, whether it's cleaning the house, changing the air filters, driving a Lamborghini, or whatever. All right, we got another question here from Hamid Aboud. What is the biggest setback, roadblock, or issue you have faced during this time, and how'd you handle it? That's a great question.
Setback, like it's the mindset. Like if I have to break it down where I'm saying like you have to be positive, that's easier said than done. And how I did that, like that, there's creative posts, there's putting myself out there, and there was all the engagements, right? But how do you wake up in the morning some days where you're just like, man, why isn't anybody hiring me? Right? And I had those thoughts plenty of times. That's the biggest roadblock of it, is to overcome that. And how everybody's going to do it, everyone's going to be different. My advice is the staying busy, working at it, and literally saying to yourself, I'm going to do this, and keep going at it. And you're still not going to be, 100%, bright eyes during it, but it's going to be better than stewing in your own disappointment.
It shows perseverance.
Laying in bed, like, oh, I just can't get out of bed today. Well, you better, man, because it's only going to get worse the longer you dwell on your situation, right? Like you got to find something to volunteer for, the community, coach soccer. I don't know what it is, but you have to find something to get out there. Meetings with people out there. There's networking events. Go to those events. Even though, I dreaded the question too, going to some of these events. What do you do? Oh, I'm going to do stuff. But you got to put yourself through a little bit of that misery, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There really is.
And another thing too, I mean, your article spoke directly to that, how I got my job using my phone. So if you are on your phone, or if you are on your smartphone and all that stuff, make it productive time. Don't just be sitting there streaming through, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, and not engaging, or Instagram or anything like that. Make it productive time. If not, you're going to waste time, and you're not going to be motivated, because obviously all these social media apps, comparisons is a thief of joy. So make it productive time. Don't be glued to it.
Like I didn't even have a computer set up for my posting up until David asked me to be on my show. I did everything on my phone.
I like how you call it your show, not his. It's very alpha of you. I like that. Very aggressive.
Did I say that? Oh my God.
Yeah,
he's never going to me.
Don't worry, it's live. We'll edit this after. Anyway, so this is from an anonymous LinkedIn user. I dig it. What does the future hold for you in light of your story? Will we continue to see you posting and sharing your story to spread the word of how positivity and hard work can change your job search trajectory? Maybe something more. So that was actually my question too. And now that you landed your job, all your efforts have paid off. Are we going to? What's going on now? You can take a back seat from the limelight. What are you doing?
I've posted every day since I've gotten my job. It's a matter of keep it going, and also helping other people. Like I try on Fridays now, try and share other people looking for work. Some of the people that are like, Keith, I've only had 100 profile views, and I only got 600 connections, and I'm like, man, we can take care of that real quick. Let's share it and let's do it. And it seems to be helping some other people, so that's great to pay it forward. Charity stuff, like there's a few GoFundMe's that I've tried to support. Like there's Wayne Turnbull, who
I saw that.
And so I generally don't like reaching out to people to ask, like, hey, can you like this post or whatever? But on those ones, I really do, like, because it's a worthwhile cause, right? And that's one thing I've tried to do more and more is give more. Like, the more I donate, it seems like the better, the more I receive. So I just keep trying to give more. So some guy, his house burned down. I gave him $200, and this for $3. Like it, I one time pulled up to the 191 and 338 loop, and homeless guy, standing on the corner. And I'm like, okay, roll down the window, and I look at my wallet. I got 3 ones and 100. Well, I give him the guy the 100, right? Because I'm just like, well, that's the right thing. That's the right thing to do, right? Like whether it's however that guy deals with it, I don't care. I'll let God figure that out. To me, it's just like, trying. I've been very fortunate, so I'm trying to pass that back.
I think that's a great attitude, man. I think helping people out, spreading positivity, genuine positivity, not these motivational quotes that are very transparent and bogus. But I completely dig that attitude from you and that outlook. Another,
I see the comment from David now. It would have gotten past him because I think he knew what I was talking about. But now I'm never going to hear the end of it.
Or he muted us. Either or, it doesn't matter. Thanks, David, for if you didn't catch that, David, I got your back, bud. I'm here. All right, we got another question right here from an anonymous LinkedIn user. Was there any time during your job search that you thought about starting your own gig or looking outside on the gig? How serious was, I guess, this tipping point for you?
It was pretty close. And starting my own gig, I've always kind of thought about it too. Like I did some consulting myself in Canada, but I really liked being part of a team. And so I really wanted a job, part of and use my experience of a bigger group. Being an entrepreneur, plus I didn't want to tax, our resources too badly, with my wife and put a little bit too much onus on her, supporting it financially. So I wanted to contribute. In the future, who knows? But right now, I don't know. I see pretty good things at Arc Energy. Like I'm pretty, like they ask me for opinions and stuff. Like it's pretty cool.
And first off, a shout out to your wife also. I know that during these times it must have been very difficult for you, as a husband, as a father, and she's been such an amazing teammate that I've never met her also, but you see her support and you see her, I guess, affection on LinkedIn. And it's just, I love seeing strong couples like that. So I think she's done
amazing. And she didn't need to see me moping around the house and stuff. Like there was a few people we'd talk to every once in a while. And, same thing. The wife was working and their husbands had gotten laid off. And they'd be like, oh man, so-and-so is just, he's down and depressed. And my wife would then come to me and she's like, if this social media is keeping you busy, she's like, just keep doing that because you're happy and nobody's, everything's good, right? Like she's just like, I know you got the odd little time where you seem down, but she's like, for the most part, like you just keep plowing forward.
Well, she's done a killer job, man. She really has. This is my buddy Corey, who probably met about 6-7 years ago at an after-tax golf tournament. Corey, how you doing, brother? He says, do you think COVID showed companies that they can do more with less employees? Do you think oil field employment will stay depressed through this current uptick in oil price and activity? Ooh.
Hard to say. I think, they're going to have 2-tiered systems. Are they going to do less? Like it showed that networking, like the digital world, is a unutilized weapon for them. So I think there's going to be more of that. Less employees. It depends on the activity, right? In some places, the regulations, I still don't think we've seen the end of, all the COVID restrictions in some areas, but in others, I think it's going to be just like a new Wild West to cover for those areas. So if you're willing to move and come to the places that are going to be busy, I think there's going to be lots of opportunity, right? And in some of the older fields where, the politics is getting in the way, it's going to be difficult. So I do think the oil prices are going to go up. just because activity in the world's going to go up, and they're going to have to catch it, because lots of great people we've seen been laid off, and they've found other gigs or other things to do or doing their own thing. So it's a lot. I think the industry's lost a lot of experience.
Right.
I look at, I don't want to point it out, but Schlumberger, it seems like they got rid of like the whole entire middle of their organization. Like there was
a big gap of knowledge too, right there. That
huge. And I just like to be like one of the biggest and the best. Like they always could. When I worked there was always someone you could call. Like if there was a problem, you just call this guy, or you call this. Well, that guy isn't there anymore. You're going to have to solve it on their own, and they're not going to be as smooth as they used to be. So I think there's going to be opportunities in places where we've never thought of yet, because of some of those bigger companies, have the holes that they do.
Right. So I have one question for you right now. This kind of came up. What's up?
Only one.
Yeah, I mean, I just one I thought of right now. So, hey, what are your thoughts on, I guess, companies that, and this again goes to branding and personal branding, and even if you're employed, what do you think about companies who try to suppress or censor, not in a negative word, but just kind of that when their employees try to do a post that is kind of personal or an individual, or maybe it's kind of funny or something like that. What are your thoughts on companies saying, that doesn't fit that doesn't fit who we are, that doesn't do this, doesn't do that? Do you think that's kind of, in this day and age, post-COVID era, do you think that's detrimental to a company?
They're going to be a dinosaur. Like if they're not adapting, the online stuff, and if you're worried about people offending somebody, like I talked about it before, those people that you're offending, they weren't going to help you anyway. So just don't even worry about it. Like just put something out there. Like obviously, taste, like don't attack anybody, but like the funny stuff or clever, and at the same time, posts only last day or half. Like they're gone. Like you can go back, you can look at history. Maybe some really big posts last a week. Like what's the harm in throwing it out there if it gets a positive light? And one thing, my advice to all the companies is, I see the pages where they post a picture of the equipment. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, would you send like to your customer, like when you're doing sales, would a salesman just walk into a customer's office, drop the brochure off, not say anything, and walk out the door and expect a sale? No. Like there's a personal element to it. Like you should be featuring your employees, putting a face to the names, and so much stuff out there to build those relationships online, so that when you do get in front of them, finally, you already have a foundation to build on.
Right. Excellent point. Yeah. We have another question here with Daryl Polston. How do you see the digital transition and the energy transition affecting the oil and gas industry?
Like the online, like the automation is going to be bigger, monitoring from home, remote. Like in production equipment, right? The levels of vessels, you can do that all from a computer with some of the automation stuff, right? Like it's huge. I think it's only going to improve it. You're still going to always need people, because the pieces don't always go together. The gauges break down. The environment's always extreme. So I think it's going to add to it. I really don't think we're ever going to have where there's this automated rig and it just does everything 100% itself and people aren't needed anymore. It's not that type of industry, because of the extreme environments downhole that we deal with. And look at offshore. Like, how are you ever going to automate all that? So
right. So, well, Keith, I think we're coming up on about an hour and a half right now. First off, everyone, this is, again, Keith Stelter. I'm sure everyone knows him. And if you don't, connect with him online, connect with him on LinkedIn, shoot him a note. If you're in the Odessa Permian area, want to get your gains on, meet him to get your pump on. There you go. That's the only thing I'm looking for right now, buddy. Keith, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for explaining to me what the term "don't trust a polar bear in a snowstorm," where it originated from. I thought that was pretty crazy story. And I think, I think that's about it. I think I'm looking at our screen right now. I don't think there's any other comments showing up. But again, Keith, thank you for coming on. Again, this is Keith Stelter, the West Texas Business Development Manager at ARC Energy, LinkedIn guru, just a positive all-around gentleman, father, friend, husband, who put himself out there during depressed times. And again, I remember during those times you're going through LinkedIn, it was miserable. It was just sad post, let go after 18 years, after 20 years, after 2 years. It was just boom, boom, boom. And then you have a glimpse of positivity. And that's what I really appreciate, man. I really appreciate you kind of changing the tone of the scroll and just kind of adding your personal, genuine touch to it, man. I think what you're doing is killing it. Again, thank you. And what do you got? What are some final thoughts or comments?
Man, I'd like to thank just a few. Like I couldn't have done this without so many people. And like some quick, Rick Tuttle, Patty Mailer, Nick Van Herd, Joseph Bendrick, Bill Gebhard, Luz Hinos, Duncan Hendelson, Richard Sunbow, Jerry Thompson, Todd Gooding, Bob Riley, Larry Johnson, Whitney Bell, Catherine Burke, Danny Salinas, Glenn Neary, Keith Chapman, Grant Pierce, huge, Johnny Fulton. Like this name, like I got name after name. Like there's so many people that I could go, that really helped me along the way. Like Marvin Riviera, Kevin Pioit, Chris Oyas, Wayne Turnbull, John Lukic. Like Doug Strano had me over to his home. The list goes on. And Tom Smith,
these are all out there. Connections you made from These are all just connections from LinkedIn or people that have helped you out through LinkedIn.
Never met them. For the most part, a lot of people like Robert Gatewood had me out for lunch. Willie Ambridge, had me out for lunch. Guy at my gym, Justin Najera, came up to me. It's the names. Dan Wraith, who I work with, Stacy Walker. Congratulations to Stacy Walker. My neighbor actually came up to me on the street and needed a guy, so I recommended Stacy, and it looks like he's going to get a job. So, and on a positive note there, the industry's going in the right way. So this has been great, JP. It's been awesome. Thank you for having me on.
One last question from Doug Taylor, and this is my question too. Did you decide a name for your workout group? And if anyone has any names, they can always just shoot either a comment on this wherever you're listening from, or shoot Keith a note, because I'm curious about this name too.
Pumping for the Permian was one. I don't know, man.
I dig that. And you got a shout out over here from Jason, the man that contacted you. Great job, Keith. I had a Mexico call and miss a lot, but try to keep up. We're so blessed to have you at Arc Energy. Man, that's awesome. Lane says, great show. Pumped me up to keep me going on. That's great. That's great to hear. Maria says, thank you for sharing your story, Keith. Corey, good show, fellas. Funny and thoughtful. I dig it. And then,
awesome. I can't believe anybody's still watching after all this time.
I'm pretty sure about that too. I think there's absolutely nothing going on in the oil field right now at 11:30 on a Tuesday. Mike say, great to meet you, Keith, and thank you, JP. And everyone, I want to thank everyone for just kind of tuning in on this. And if you have any questions or any follow-up questions or anything like that, just either shoot me a note or shoot Keith a note. We'd love to answer them, get back at you. And again, check out Round the Rotary podcast on any platform. I'm sure there's a couple people on the show that you have met or that you've heard their name or something like that. It's a fun show. Again, it's just shooting the bull, just getting to know the person behind the position. So again, everyone, this is Keith, and I appreciate your time, amigo, and I wish you the best, buddy. We'll be in contact.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure being on.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to everyone soon at Round the Rotary. Oh, wait, got to give a little shout out to my wife. Talking about power couple right here. Great conversation, guys. Thanks, Monica, for tuning in.
Quite the singer, too. I saw the post on Instagram.
What, her jamming out? Yeah, so we went to that Digital Wildcatters crawfish boil, and Lindsay L was there, who's a Canadian country singer, right?
It's a small world.
Canadian country singer. She was jamming out. My wife's a musician. She got up on stage and freestyled with her. And for those of you who want to check it out, you can go check out on Instagram that clip. That was pretty fun. So, again, Keith, I'm proud of you, man. I love your message. I love your attitude. Keep it up. And, man, I guess we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, dude.
All right. Talk to